Hey everyone, Jordan here. The other day I covered the new Phanteks Eclipse G400A, a great case at under $100 with 4 included fans. Now in that video at the start I also mentioned that Phanteks now have a new AIO fans and also a Nexlinq hub out to control it all. Today we're going to be looking at this stuff. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Now first of all, we're going to start with the Nexlinq hub. This is how you're going to be able to control everything really easily. Think of course iCue with their new link system. You can just plug one thing from one component to another. Very similar premise here. So here's the hub itself. We have got 2 inputs, so you can control from one part to another. So for example, you could go from the AIO into the exhaust fan, then background into one port, or you can do all the different fans onto another, something like that. We also have an LED control. We did see on the back of the G400A there was a little LED connection, so we can clip that in there. That's also daisy chainable. Then we have also got a 4-pin PWM power on there as well. On the end we have got a PCIe 6-pin. A lot of companies are now starting to use this over SATA or Molex. You can provide a lot more power to the components. We've seen it, for example, the Lee daisy chain fans. You can do up to about 14 together on one cable. That's just the amount of power that those can produce. So it's certainly more effective than the old school connectors. So included in the accessories, the USB that will go into USB 2 header for your motherboard. That will be the software control. We then have got a couple of adapter cables, so this will be an input cable, so 1 or 2. That will then go to 4-pin PWM, also LED control, and a daisy chain for traditional 5-volt 3-pin RGB. Then finally we have a mainboard adapter. This is an optional one if you don't want to use the software and the USB port that's on the end. This will allow you to connect a standard 3-pin 5-volt addressable and also a 4-pin for PWM control. You can also do the Phanteks RGB on there as well, and that will then just connect into the end like so with the proprietary cable. Then in theory that should allow you to do all the different changes via your motherboard software rather than using the Phantexes. Last but not least, we've got a very strong piece of hook and loop tape if you want to stick it inside your system. So moving on to the fans, here I've got a triple pack of the M25 120mm G2 fans in white. These also reverse blades. There's a lot of different options. I'm going to put the little presentation on the screen so you can see what's available. You can get them in black and white, and they also have a non-RGB variant for you guys that like a bit of stealth. They all come with a 3-year warranty, and all of the digital RGB versions have a standard and a reverse blade option. You can get a single fan for $9.99 or $25.99 for a triple pack, so you do save a little bit of money if you buy a triple. And as you can see here, they all come screwed in together as well. So for example, if you're going to fill 360mm on a case, you can easily just install that in one go. Inside we've got a few accessories. We have our screws to put them obviously into the case. We then have some covers like we saw on the previous D30 fans. Nice to cover all of the screw holes and keep them looking really clean. We then have our different cables, so this comes with 2 of the Nexlinq cables. So like I mentioned at the start, you've got different options, so you could connect your AIO to these and then into the hub, or you could go into your exhaust fan, into AIO, and then into the hub, whatever preference you have. The last cable they include is an optional one like we saw on the adapter. So if you don't want to use the software, we've got a 3-pin 5-volt addressable. Then there's also a 4-pin PWM and LED control. Then you have the 6-pin that will connect into the fans. If anyone's wondering about the specific length of the cables, there's the information there. So a little bit of a close-up look before we move on to the AIO. We have the little infinity mirror on each of these fans like we saw with the G400A. Just having a little close-up of the cables that are routed through. One thing that I do like is that the cables are just long enough to actually connect between the fans. I noticed I think it was the AIO, they had daisy chain cables, but there was a little bit of slack that bowed down. I wasn't really a fan of that, so these are all very neatly done, very tight cables, so things we'll have to see. Of course, these are the reverse blade fans, so we're not going to see any of the frame that's on the other side. So very nice to keep the lines clean in your case. And then we'll obviously put the covers over when we've got them screwed in. And then other little things to touch upon, these can go a maximum of 2000 RPM and have a maximum airflow of 72.72 CFM with a noise level of 35.13 decibels, so fairly quiet at full speed. So last but no means least, the Glacier One 360 M25 G2. Said in the case review, a little bit of a mouthful there, but this is the new AIO. It's going to be available in 360 for now. We may see a 240, 280 in the future, and you can also get it in black and white. It's going to be £89 at the time of filming, which I think is really reasonable for a branded AIO. Let's tell you some other things about this as I open this up. This has got a really nice 5-year warranty. You generally only see about 3 tops with an AIO, so Phanteks are really pushing it with this one. Compatibility wise, we've got support for LGA 1700, 1800, AM4, AM5. So instructions and a little bit of foam aside. First thing, we've got a big old bag of accessories. Here we've got all of our mounting hardware. There's a tube of thermal paste. Love to see an additional one. Also some clips for the radiator. There's also looks to be a SATA to 4-pin PWM. That's probably for the pump, so you can run it full speed all the time. Turning it around, we've got all of our mounting hardware. There's also some radiator screws and all those kind of standard bits and bobs. So we've got some more covers for the fans. We've also got another adapter cable, so if you're going to put it into the Nexlinq hub. Then also one of the motherboard cables, so great for the people that are just buying the AIO and not going into the whole ecosystem. You don't have to use the hub, you can just go into the motherboard. So good thing we'd have to say, you don't like seeing things locked down. For example, NZXT have proprietary cables on a lot of their stuff, and having the option I think is always a better way to go. I'm not sure if I did this, but there's a little bit of a stain on the tubing, which is a little bit of a shame. I don't know if I did that. I may well have done. Don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but I've also got a little scratch on the radiator as well. Now, to give them the benefit of the doubt, this is one of the early units that was sent to me before the production, before the embargo as well. So hopefully it was just one that slipped through quality, or even before they did the quality check. So that could be why mine's like that. I'm sure yours will be absolutely pristine when you get it though. So fairly dense fin arrangement on that radiator. I can also see some fins under the screw hole, so make sure you don't go too hard when you wrench the screw, when you wrench those screws down, just to make sure you don't damage those fins. Generally, I would say this is something I wouldn't expect to see, but being that this is a £90 AIO for everything that's included, you have got to cut them a bit of a slack because they need to save money somewhere. That's generally one thing we do see on the cheaper AIOs. The fins run all the way through rather than having gaps for the threads. Going down the AIO, we've got some really nice braid on the tubes. There's 400mm of length there for your hoses as well. That then goes to a rectangular design like we saw on the front of the G400A. And underneath you can see a little fan that's going to bring out some air onto the VRMs and also onto your M.2 slot as well. Now Phanteks say that they've had a 11-degree difference on the VRMs with that fan being on over being off, then 8 degrees on the NVMe. So we shall see in testing how effective that is. But if we are going to see results like that and it's not too loud, that's going to be a nice little addition. Then on the bottom of the pump, we've got a nice copper block with some pre-applied thermal paste. Then looks like we've got an Intel bracket pre-applied. The cables coming out of that, we've got a 3-pin for the pump power that will go up to 3100 RPM. I'll just leave that full speed, find a header and just leave it on 100%, or use that adapter like I mentioned that's in the bag. Then we've also got the Nexlinq connector, so that's also got a daisy chain on if you want to add on any additional products. So that was a little overview of the Nexlinq hub, the new fans and also the new AIO. I'm now going to get this into my test system, see how it performs thermally. I'll then put it into the charts to compare it against some other coolers that we've tested in the AIOs. I'll then put all of this into the G400A as a nice little white system for you to see it all together with the ecosystem. We'll then run through the software, talk to you more about that, and I can give you my overall thoughts. Here's the system that I built to show off the Nexlinq software. We've got the Intel Core Ultra 265K on the MSI MPG Z890 Edge TI Wi-Fi. There's 32GB of Kingston Renegade White DDR5 with a Seagate Fire CUDA 530 boot drive, Phanteks AIO reverse fans, and then the Nexlinq hub. And then we also have the Gigabyte RTX 4070 Aero, all in the G400A, powered by Corsair HM 1000W power supply with white custom cables. Onto the Nexlinq software. It's pretty basic at the moment, but I'm sure it will get a bit more advanced with different features as time progresses. On the left hand side we have the system dashboard with the temperatures. You can adjust this to Fahrenheit and also Celsius. And then the right hand side is default onto fan control. We've got silent performance and then custom. You can easily click these to then just change them. For example, if you want to do a custom one, you can go and then click the right hand button and then select what you want to base it off, so you can do a little bit of a mix. And you can adjust that accordingly for your own little custom curve. Personally, I ran silent for most of this and it's been quite quiet. They do go pretty loud though if you do ramp them up fully. Obviously different banks of fans could have different things on, so you might want to adjust them accordingly to what you've got connected to which. So for example, you could have the front fans on port 1, the GPU fans on port 2, and then just adjust it accordingly. Once you're happy with the settings, then just press center hub. That will then save those chosen settings. You can also save to profiles at the bottom here as well if you wish. Going on to the lighting controls is very similar to our fan control. We have all the options down the left hand side. You can of course rename these if you'd like to as well. So for example, the top one I've got the AIO, the second one is the GPU fans, and the bottom is the case and also the front fans and rear fan. But I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's just do some random picks so you can have an idea of what the kind of things that this can do. Green and yellow, then just press center hub and that will of course apply those. Might be something you'd have to spend some time with to find out what colour combinations you like personally. Obviously the RAM's a little bit different, but that's something you can set in your motherboard software. That will vary of course on what you're using yourself. Now if you want to go for the same effect for everything, you have this little option here, same as port 1. So you can just press that and then let's say we're going to go rainbow, center hub, and then that will just do that on everything, which is a really convenient way to just do it all in one if you want to. That's what I've been using for the solid option, just when I've been doing some testing. just to keep it all nice and even. Really easy way to change it over. So on to the conclusion. This video has taken a lot longer to finish than I first expected, so apologies if you're waiting for it after I said it would be a couple of days after the G400A review. Had some trouble with the boot drive, and then also building a complete system to show off the parts wasn't quick to do either. Certainly reminded me why I don't do it more often. Also, I recommend you get some snacks and a drink and get comfy for this conclusion because it's quite a lot to cover. So first of all, the Nexlinq hub, as you saw in the software demo, it's very simple and easy to use. However, the setup is the one thing that can actually take some time. Working out what to connect to what port can be a little bit confusing, as all the cables from the specific components connect a certain way. More on that in a minute. And then also I ended up using YouTube at the end to work it all out. It also didn't help that I first used the universal cable from the AIO rather than the proprietary Phanteks one. Having more cables in the box can also make it more confusing as well. Now, because the cables route along the back of the fans and the products, they have to be orientated one way, which can make cable management a little bit tricky. I can imagine more so in some cases than others, as you obviously have to go where the cable comes out rather than putting it where you want to. There are a couple of cables that are so close to connecting together as well, but the spacing is just slightly too far apart. The AIO with the front fans is one of them. It'd be nice if they included some short cables just to bridge the gaps. But that being said, if the orientation isn't right, then it wouldn't connect anyway. Now, at the very start of the video, I mentioned Corsair iCue, and that's going to be the competitor to this product. This is much cheaper and does work well. However, it has the caveats that you need to plan for and take your time with it, whereas Corsair is a more expensive option that you can just put the fans in where you want them, then connect them all up afterwards. The fans use a female connection, which you can also connect multiple banks of fans with jumpers rather than cables, and then you just basically bridge the gaps with short male cables. Those cables can also be reversed as well, so you can put them whichever way allows the cables to be hidden more easily. It's either basically save money and spend more time planning with Nexlinq, or spend more money and have a super easy, hassle-free setup with iCue. We really need a middle ground with something like the Corsair connector style that can work from both ends just without the price. However, the fact you can use the Nexlinq hardware without the software is great, because some people like to use Signal RGB to control everything over multiple single applications. Now, moving on to the AIO, this was rather tricky to install, in this case the G400A, although you think it would be meant to fit together. It could be that Phanteks mean for you to install it with the hoses on the left hand side, but I like to go for the right just for aesthetics. I had to actually unscrew the top of the case to be able to squeeze it in. The setup without the hub is fairly easy though. You just have to connect the fans to the cable coming from the pump, then connect your 3-pin pump power either to your motherboard or to the SATA adapter that's included, the 3-pin RGB, and then the Sense cable for PWM. Now, I tested the AIO with my usual 12900K Intel test system. It gave me a maximum temperature of 78 degrees in my Cinebench synthetic tests. Putting that into the chart, minus the 19.7 degree ambient, this comes out as the second coolest AIO that I've tested yet. Slightly cooler than the EK Nucleus 2, which was one of the best AIOs that I've covered. I can't really recommend that anymore though because of the EK issues. However, this one is cheaper, which obviously makes it easy to recommend instead. Now, the VRM fan on the little pump block does add a little bit of a noise to the system. It's not too loud though. I managed to test it with and without, and it does drop the capacitor temps around it by a few degrees, and also the M.2 heat as well. I didn't spend ages testing this though, as there's way too many variables with a number of different CPUs, motherboards and NVMe combos out there, so your results may vary, but for the little noise it adds, it's worth having on there. As you saw in the unboxing, the fans also come with the little spare covers for the screws, but the cases and also the AIOs don't. I've already broken one trying to get the AIO in, as they're pretty flimsy and easy to break, so it would be nice to have some extra in the other products, especially if you're not going to buy the whole complete package. Some other little things to remember: there are rad fins under the screw holes on the AIO, so be careful not to over tighten them. I would like to see the threads clear of fins, which would add a little bit of cost, but given that the AIO is pretty aggressively priced, it will be in the eyes of first time builders, where the fewer potential accidents the better. Now, for those wondering, the fans in the bottom of the case help drop the temperature of the 4070 AIO by just over a degree. They're more of a visual enhancement, I feel, in this scenario. Also, the thicker the GPU and the closer the gap between those fans, the less effective they're going to be. So I wouldn't go too much thicker of a GPU than I've got in here. So this is more of another asterisk, results may vary part. Overall, the products look and perform very well. You have vivid, vibrant RGB and the fans move a lot of air. The pricing is great too. Obviously, you have a little bit of working out to do with the cable management to begin with, but in the long run, it does save you money. and we also have great price performance on the AIO, taking the top spot on the best budget AIO that I've tested yet. So I'll put all the links for the products in the description box below if you want to pick any up. Of course, if you've got any more questions, then please leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, please get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Thank you to Phanteks for sending the products out for me to review, and I'll see you all in the next one.